The September 3rd meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners will please come to order. Welcome to our meeting and glad to see everyone safe and healthy. Stay that way. Pay attention to the weather reports and everything else, because we don't know any storm that can stay the way this one has and then spin in place. We don't know what that sucker will do. It may do anything. So just be on the alert. All right. I want to call on Commissioner Larry Lancaster for the invocation this morning, please.
Please stand. Father, we're meeting here today to conduct matters of business. Please guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impact your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance. May we ask that each of us be reminded that there's a dawn in every darkness, but bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come our future. Amen.
Amen.
Join me with the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know I see at least one representative here of the organization, Mr. Evans.
Yes, ma'am. We'd like to welcome Ms. Wilkerson. She's a member of, would you stand, please, ma'am? She's a member of the Cumberland County Library Board of Trustees, and we welcome you here this morning. Thank you for coming to our meeting and your meeting.
I think she's vice chair of that board.
I am so sorry to add that. I forgot that. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry,
Ms.
Charles.
Wilkerson, please
I'm
forgive
sorry.
me.
It's all right. She knows who she is.
But I tell you one thing, she's a faithful and dedicated member to that library trustee board. I will say that.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other representatives of our boards other than the sheriff? Would you please stand and wave your hand, and his deputy? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I have the first. I want to ask Ms. Corliss Parson to come down, please, to the podium. And this is very significant because this is also, our state is celebrating 100 years of public health nursing this year. Ms. Parson has been named one of North Carolina's 100 distinguished public health nurses by the North Carolina, you want to take a picture?
The health director's here too. The health director.
Okay. By the North Carolina Public Health Association. She has worked for the Cumberland County Department of Health for 28 years. And over those years, she's worked in different areas of the health department, including the school nurse program. She currently serves as a newborn postpartum home visiting nurse. She's an honorary PhD. She gave me some advice that worked. She shares herself with others. It was just common sense, and it helped me so much. This award that she's receiving recognizes excellence in 4 areas: professionalism, community-centered care, innovation, and collaboration. Ms. Parson collaborates with various clinics and programs within the health department and in the community as she works to meet the needs of her patients. Please join the Board of Commissioners as we congratulate Ms. Corliss Parson on this honor and show our appreciation for the care and attention that she gives to her patients and their babies. She exemplifies the very best in public health nursing, and we are proud that she's a member of the Cumberland County Health Department. Thank you so much. We are proud of you and your baby. You want another picture? See, you don't know, but we got a couple of commissioners that always got to get on the pictures.
Actually, you only have one.
God bless you.
We need another picture, please. We need another photo. Group photo.
Jeanette, come up here.
You need to go up there and get in the picture.
No, no.
Oh, I think she was trying to get one with just to help people. She was trying to.
I was
Come on,
trying to
Mitchell.
get one just to help people. But
We'll get you one
anyway,
with just to help people.
public health.
Stay with her. Oh, sorry.
I don't know. Our medical director. Yes.
Come on, it's the best we're gonna look all week.
When I asked him to come get up in the picture, he just right in front of me. Little rat. See, I told you.
Y'all are crazy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's right.
All right. Let me call on the county manager, Ms. Cannon, because I'm sure there are changes, additions to the agenda, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I do have one correction and one request for an addition. Under item 2C on the consent agenda, I would ask that you make a change in the budget revision number. The budget revision number should be B201108. And again, that's item 2C on the consent agenda. I'd also ask that the board consider adding an item of business, item of 4D. Staff would like to provide you with an update on Hurricane Dorian, and we also have 2 items related to the hurricane that we would ask that you consider. Mr. Jackson has a budget revision on debris removal and also a Duke Energy staging agreement, if the board would agree to add item 4D.
All right.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda with the corrections and additions as stated by the county manager.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda with the correction and the addition of item 4C. D. Those in favor?
Unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
And I'll second that. Are those in favor of approving the
Unanimous.
consent agenda, please show of hands. Did I see somebody? Okay.
Elvis is leaving the building, man.
Item number 3 are our public hearings. 3A is a public hearing on the proposed financing authorized by General Statute 159-151 and consideration of approval to adopt the resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of an installment financing agreement to refinance the Cumberland County Finance Corporation Certificates of Participation Series 2009B and a 2017 installment financing contract. Mrs. Evans.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. At the August 19th Board of Commissioners meeting, a resolution which authorized the filing of an application to the Local Government Commission was approved and authorization was given to publish the notice of public hearing for today's meeting on the proposed installment financing contract for the refunding of the 2009B Certificates of Participation, or COPS, and the 2017 installment financing. Since August 19th, a request for proposals was conducted and several banks responded. PNC Bank offered the most advantageous business terms with rates of 1.56% on the 2009B COPS over the remaining 5 years and 1.72% on the 2017 draw program over 7 years. The refunding of the 2009B COPS will generate approximately $1.75 million or 7.8% in net present value interest savings. The LGC is scheduled to consider this refunding at their October 1 meeting. This morning, we're requesting to hold the public hearing on the proposed financing and adoption of the resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of the installment financing contract to refinance the 2009B COPS and the 2017 installment financing contract.
Mr. Keith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Evans, when will the maturity of these COPS come about?
The COPS is December 31st, 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions before
Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the public hearing and the resolution. Is that sufficient, Mr. Attorney?
You mean to hold the public hearing?
Hold the public hearing and approve the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Want to open the public hearing. Are there speakers?
There are no speakers.
I'll close the public hearing. And now I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Keith's motion. Did you have a second?
Did I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Thank you. Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, under items of business, item 4A is consideration of the City of Fayetteville's request for the county to apply for additional Federal Transit Administration grant funds for expanded elderly and disabled transportation services. This item was discussed at the City-County Liaison meeting on August.
You missed one? You missed A?
You missed A.
I think that was
I
B.
apologize.
Oh,
I skipped right over A. Thank you. Item A is consideration of a contract to engage outside counsel for the status of a coverage claim. I apologize.
Offer a motion to approve.
A second.
All right, you've heard the motion. Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Now we are at
4B, and I'll pick up where I left off. Again, my apologies. This item was originally presented by the city at the City-County Liaison meeting on August 15th. As you know, FAST and the county's Community Transportation Program both receive federal and state funding to provide transportation for the elderly and disabled. The one difference is that FAST is eligible for 50% Federal Transit Administration funding, while the county is eligible for 80% funding if the services are provided to the elderly and disabled. Specifically, the city is requesting that the county apply for additional FTA funds in the amount of $40,000 since the match is only 20%, or about $8,000 on a $40,000 grant. It appears from the discussion at the meeting, the city is willing to pay the entire grant match if the county applies for the funding so that transportation services can continue to the Vision Resource Center. Attached to this agenda item, you'll find the draft minutes specifically for this one item from that city-county liaison meeting. The recommendation from management this morning is that the Board of Commissioners approve requesting $40,000 of additional FTA funds for VRC transportation contingent upon the 20% match being provided by the city of Fayetteville.
Mr. Adams?
Madam Chair, I would move that the Board of Commissioners approve requesting $40,000 of additional FTA 5310 grant funds for continued VCR transportation contingent upon the 20% match being provided by the city of Fayetteville.
Second.
Mr. Keefe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been following this action with a lot of uneasiness. I believe the Vision Resource Center is an important service in our community. And in fact, Commissioner Adams and I sponsored a request to the state delegation to support vision-impaired school-age children with services to assist with funding programs in the school system. Didn't get anywhere, but we did make that request up. But this center currently provides services in our community to many low-income clients and individuals who otherwise cannot afford services for the blind. When the issue was first presented, I asked specifically of the wisdom of putting a program that provides human services to many low-income citizens outside the current bus routes. My major issue is that of consistency. I would not support a program that is partially funded by the county to service clients outside public transportation service areas, no more than I would support a social services or a public health facility outside the public transportation. Now we're at a point where we've chosen a very nice facility, but in a wrong location. In an effort to fix a poor decision, we find a solution by expending more funds on a partial bus service that will cost almost $50,000 between the city, the county, the state, and the federal government. Although federal will be providing the match, the federal government and the state will be providing the $40,000 of the program. But the county is also providing many in-kind services with rent, landscaping, janitorial, and utilities. At the end of the day, I'm also a resident of the city of Fayetteville, Cumberland County, North Carolina, and the federal government. So all this money is coming from us. From my perspective, we created an issue by providing this facility in a poor location to service the client. And now we are expanding that by providing a very limited and partial bus service that is not a benefit to all the clients of the Vision Resource Center. This just looks like we are doubling down on a poor decision and not providing quality services while being fiscally responsible. I believe a more prudent action and more fiscally responsible action would provide a facility that is located within the city limits of Fayetteville and on the current bus route. This way, VRC Vision Resource clients would have access to public transportation and the facility at all times that public transportation is running. I believe it would be in the best interest of the county, the Vision Resource Center, and their clients to provide or rent a facility within the city limits of the bus route and allow each of the clients an equal opportunity to use the facilities to improve their lives and their abilities. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keefe. Mr. Adams?
Madam Chair, we did this. The very first thing I would say, it was not a poor decision. I think it was a decision made by this board looking at all of the available information. We understand that with the Vision Resource Center, it wasn't just about relocating them. It was about them being able to tap into some funds from an organization that wanted to assist them at a greater volume for this community committee out of Durham that gave them funds. They were on a short time lease. They had to change the space to be able to get that grant. So, yeah, we can be short-sighted and talk about that. In the long run, you lose more money losing the grant than you do putting them in this facility. Having talked to the director of Division Resource Center, and in terms of what those individuals are experiencing out there at that facility, and I do leave it to the VCR director, who is much more, she's on this on a daily basis, is this was indeed a great location for them to be out there where they're sitting on the back porch listening to the birds, got the space to be able to get out into the yards. Yes, it's a minor inconvenience as to where it's located, but I think at the end of the day, if you balance the efficiency of what we were going to lose as to what they were going to gain, in this particular instance, the gain is far greater than what we would have lost trying to wait to move them somewhere else. So in line of that, I think that's why I made the motion, and I think that this is a tremendous effect for this organization. This is what we do on a daily basis, and I do not think it was ever a bad decision on this board to relocate the Vision Resource Center where we did. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. This is about the 5th time you brought that back up.
Well, it's still up for a vote.
I'm sorry.
It's still up for a vote.
I'm sorry, but, oh, Mr. Faircloth.
I'll just make a quick comment on the motion. The motion is to approve the application for the grant. At this point, I think that we're into this, and I think, we need to see it through. Originally, I agree with Mr. Adams, time was of the essence to get them moved and get them into a place, because they were going to be homeless as a group pretty quick, or at least as an organization. And I think we did what we needed to do at the time. Plus, we had a building on our property, on our industrial site property, that was suddenly unoccupied and needed to be kept up. And I thought it was in our best interest to keep that property viable pending some future use of the property. So I agree with Mr. Keefe. We probably need to look at possibly having them move to a better location in the future that would be on a bus line. But right now, we've got the situation we've got, and I think we need to make the most of it.
All right. Thank you. And I support the motion for these reasons, and also the fact that the city and county are collaborating. Yeah. So please, we are working together. I know what you're thinking on a bad decision, but anyway,
okay.
We're collaborating.
It's a beautiful part about government. We all get to give our opinion. Yes, ma'am.
Give yours every time we
Yes,
mention.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. Those in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Faircloth, Chair Council, Commissioners Adams and Evans. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Keefe.
All right, thank you. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I believe we're on item 4C.
I think we are.
Yeah, I think so. Consideration of requesting Spectra Venue Management to utilize funds set aside in the 2017 management agreement for the engagement of a firm to conduct a market analysis and feasibility study. As you know, over the last 18 months, the Board of Commissioners has engaged in discussion about a capital planning model. Included in that capital planning model is replacement facilities for the Crown Theater and Arena. Spectra Venue Management is a partner in that process as they manage the current Crown complex. As such, Spectra is offering to manage the process of engaging a firm to conduct the feasibility study to analyze and determine the need for a new facility to replace the Crown Theater and the Arena. This approach has several advantages. First of all, it eliminates the need to use county funding or food and beverage funds for the study. Second, it expedites the timeline for the study completion and delivery of the results. And finally, management of the process is led then by a neutral third party that has industry experience, and this may enhance the community engagement and reception. Included in your agenda packet is a letter from Spectra that lays out the details on this approach. The recommendation today is to request Spectra Venue Management to utilize funds set aside in the 2017 management agreement for the engagement of a firm to conduct this market analysis and feasibility study.
All right. You've heard the information on the item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this action. Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
That would bring us to item 4D, Madam Chair, and I'm going to ask Assistant Manager Mr. Jackson to give us an update on Hurricane Dorian and also lay out 2 items for your consideration this morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for adding this to your agenda, and here we go again.
Oh, yes.
So,
2-year cycle.
right, and it's nothing that any of us look forward to, but I do feel we're better prepared and have better experience, obviously, than in the past, because we have been through 2 previous hurricanes. Let me tell you what I know right now. The governor has declared a state of emergency over the weekend. Our staff are prepared and have put together a declaration for a local state of emergency, and we will recommend possibly rolling that out later today or early tomorrow. And that will include the smaller municipalities that wish to participate in the county's declaration. At present, the highest winds are anticipated Thursday afternoon and evening. Rainfall of approximately 2 to 6 inches starting Wednesday night through Friday morning, and a low risk of isolated tornadoes Wednesday night through Thursday. We partially activated the Emergency Operations Center. It'll fully activate tomorrow morning. Potential hazards that folks need to remember are localized flooding in urban areas from heavy downpours, down trees from gusty winds, and the possibility of localized power outages. Citizens are advised to make preparations now, as conditions will likely deteriorate rapidly Wednesday night into Thursday. Everyone needs to keep in mind that the storm's track could change. It could swing towards us. It could swing out to the ocean. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. Stay aware and monitor Dorian's path and progress, and we will make updates as conditions change. For those who have not signed up for Cumberland Alerts, it's here on the screen, we are encouraged to do so without delay. So I don't know if you have any questions for me right now before I go into the other items, but I'm glad to answer what I can for you.
Mr. Keith.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, one of the things we saw, based on our past experience over the last couple of years, is the Cape Fear River. On the other 2, seem to be at a higher level than. Do you anticipate that being a problem this time?
I don't with the current forecast.
Right.
I think it always bears watching. So if the track moves towards us, that's something we obviously are going to be concerned about. If you look at the river levels now, we're going to be in good shape.
Significantly lower.
For what's forecasted right now.
Right.
But we've got to watch it very closely. So I don't want anybody to lull themselves into complacency or to think that it's something to put low on the priority scale. I think that we've got to be very serious and very mindful and prepare for the worst in the event that it happens.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
Farrakhan.
Tracy. I had seen also that the rivers are now at a lower level than they were the last go-around,
Right.
which is a good thing. Also, have any dams been rebuilt? Have any of the ponds that were destroyed, have they been refilled, or they just de facto refilling because of they're there, or what's the level of those? Have we got any of those at risk now?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, many of the dams that were breached still remain breached.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And there's not been a whole lot of action. Some of the larger ones, of course, take more time, more permitting approvals, and more engineering. So I don't feel like we're in any worse shape than we've been previously when it comes to dams. So, okay. If there's no other questions, I'll go on to these other two items that are hurricane-related.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The first one is a budget ordinance revision. And it's budget ordinance number 201337. And this is requested to prepare for potential impacts of Hurricane Dorian with a fund balance appropriation of $600,000 that is requested to offset contracted services to include debris removal and monitoring, meals for the Emergency Operations Center, and FEMA professional consulting services. Upon presidential declaration of a disaster, the revenue source will be changed from fund balance to FEMA at 75% and the state of North Carolina at 25%. The second request is for the Board of Commissioners to assign the county manager signature authority to execute standby debris and consulting contract notices to proceed in amounts not to exceed $200,000 each. So those are the first two items that we have.
Are there questions?
So if we don't get the declaration, we just have to pay, it's just out of our fund balance.
If there's not a federal declaration, right, and if there's no state reimbursement. We will feel some impacts. What those will be, I cannot predict, but we can anticipate some down trees and some debris from that.
And I guess my question would be, what kicks that in? I mean, if you got some down debris on your house, in your yard or whatever, but if they don't have the declaration and the governor doesn't and the president doesn't, what kicks in the use of the $600,000? How do we decide whose yard gets or neighborhood gets done and whose neighborhood doesn't get done? Is it because it's on a public street, or it's? I mean, I guess that would be my question. If you kind of
Sure.
understand, I don't.
I do. So we engage the contractors, one for debris pickup and one for monitoring the contractor that's doing the debris pickup to make sure it's done to standard. So we would open that up countywide. So depending on the amount of debris, there'd be surveys that are done. We would target the hard-hit areas and go from there. So for us, with what's currently forecast, it's more than likely east of I-95, but that could change. So we don't have a lot of insurance right now how much debris we could have. We just want to be prepared just in case.
Well, I got that part, but I'm still saying how much. I mean, once you engage the consultant, you got to pay the consultant, regardless of how much debris there is. So where do we make a determination of the debris? I mean, if it's not a presidential declaration on the governor, then why do we need the consultant when we can just look out and see where the damage is and tell them the debris and just have the debris people go pick it up? I'm just trying to figure out
Sure.
whether we do this 600,000, does it all just fall out there? I mean, it's got to be some mechanism where it kicks in. Is it at 100,000 that we got this much damage, or we got this much damage, and once we kick it in, is it the whole 600, part of the 600? I mean, I didn't have enough
understand what you're
information
saying.
on that.
I don't know that I can
And I
tell
know it's
you.
an emergency situation.
Right, and I don't know that I can tell you there's a magic number. It's an up to amount, and it will depend on the amount of damage and the amount of debris. The consulting work typically is on the back end when it comes to the FEMA paperwork and making sure all those processes are in place that need to be monitored. I know it's a big ask, but based on our experience previously with the two hurricanes, it's something that we have to have in place. And I can tell you that we'll be good stewards with this money, and we won't
I
squander
have
it.
no doubt of that.
Mr. Jackson, isn't it true that emergency management and staff would do initial surveys to
Yes.
identify those areas before we even brought in a contractor?
Right.
That's what I
So-
wanted to hear.
Well,
Okay.
and I mentioned that the surveys will be done, but they'll be done in conjunction with the contractors.
Thank you.
So, yes, sir.
All right.
Mr.
Okay.
Keefe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. I think everybody recognizes is going to be a large storm that's going to affect a large area. And I would imagine that the services of contractors who do this are going to be in short supply. So I appreciate the proactive stance
Yes, sir.
of trying to secure, or at least reach out with contractors and putting this up. You had mentioned something earlier, and I just wanted to get a clarification. You said this was 600,000 is countywide, but we are specifically talking about areas outside the towns and the city.
Unincorporated.
Unincorporated.
Yes, sir.
It's just in the unincorporated areas, or does this also include any of the small towns?
Have we included any of the small towns? Yeah.
Because we've
We
had
haven't
a
in the
couple.
past, but
Yeah, we've had a couple areas where some of the small towns have gotten.
So the contract language does include pickup in the smaller, or the small towns. Yes.
Okay, for clarification, does that exclude like a Hope Mills and a Spring Lake? And
Yes.
just include the other?
In Fayetteville.
In Fayetteville?
Yes.
And it just includes the other 6 small townships?
That's correct.
Okay, and of course, all the unincorporated areas?
Correct.
Yes, thank you very much.
And as far as the money, as a point of comparison, the contracts for debris removal during Hurricane Florence did not exceed $100,000, and debris monitoring did not exceed $100,000.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Fairclough?
I'm a little bit confused. Why would we include the smaller towns and not include the larger towns? I mean, what's the rationale for, I can understand Fayetteville, they got their own
Yes, sir.
thing going on, but
So we did that because during Hurricane Florence, the smaller towns reached out. I think maybe it was Matthew, and we couldn't because we did not incorporate that into the contracts. But in preparation for Florence, we did include the smaller towns because they are not staffed like Hope Mills, Spring Lake, and Fayetteville.
Okay.
They don't have staff that do a request for FEMA reimbursement.
if this comes out of, okay, I understand FEMA, but if this ends up coming out of the fund balance, will we charge that back to the smaller towns at
I
some
understand.
cost?
I think a determination would have to be made ahead of time before we would proceed with that.
Okay.
Mr. Fairclough, we would have to charge that back. That would have to be.
I can't hear you.
That would have to be charged back.
Okay.
All right, we've heard the two recommendations.
Motion to approve.
Second. Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the last item that I have for you is Duke Energy staging agreement. I believe that was sent to the board members by email.
Move that we approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Item number 5, Madam Chair, are the board's nominations.
Madam Chair, to make yourself legal, I think on the Southeastern Economic Development Commission, I would move that we nominate Chair Council, based upon the letter that we got.
We have a second.
Okay.
That's just a nomination.
Thank you for making me legal. Are there other nominations? If not, we'll go on to appointments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This time, we have an equal number of vacancies and an equal number of nominations. Therefore, at this point, I would move that we appoint Nathan Galbraith to the Board of Adjustment and Catherine Marable to the Mid-Carolina Aging Advisory Council in the voluntary category.
Second.
I second that, Madam Chair, but I would just kind of on that, the Board of Adjustment, that sometimes we just look, they're all being on that board, and I think at some point we need a woman on that board, just to have some diversity of all of this, but I second Mr. Fairclough's motion. Just something for us to think about.
We'll make note of that. Mr. Adams? Those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is closed session for an attorney-client matter pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-318, 11A3.
Move, we go into closed session.
Second.
Those in favor?
Unanimous.
We are now in closed session. We have,
I move to come out of closed session.
Second.
those in favor coming out of closed session? Unanimous. That's unanimous. I need a motion to, no, we recess.
Recess.
Recess the meeting at this time.
You have that
And
motion.
go to room 564 upstairs.